We are now going to shift our conversation, and maybe I should say everybody take a stretch break. I don't know if you're sitting on your couch or you're looking on your phone, but we're now going to shift to a panel of folks who are actively working on preserving the dark skies here in Minnesota and across the border. 4 public lands in the US and Canada are coordinating efforts to create one of the world's largest dark sky destinations: Voyageurs National Park, Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness, Quetico Provincial Park, and Verendrye Provincial Park. So before we kind of kick it over and introduce each of our panelists, we're going to watch a brief intro video on this international collaborative effort. All right. Well, hopefully that has set the mood. I'd like to invite our panelists for this next hour to turn on their video and sound so that our audience out there can see you as you turn on. Welcome, folks. We have a great group of people here that's joining us this evening. And so I think there's one more person. Connie Cummins, can you turn on your video and sound too? I see you on my screen, but I don't see you as a video. So maybe I'll get started by introducing folks. Anne, can you turn on your video as well? Awesome, and your sound, because I'm gonna go through and everybody can give a little wave. So first person on our panel, Anne Schwaller, is the Forest Program Manager for the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness. We'll have you wave, give a hello. Bob DeGross is Superintendent of Voyageurs National Park. Trevor Gibb is Superintendent of Quetico Provincial Park. Adam Dalton is the Dark Sky Places Manager at the International Dark Sky Association. And returning back for this next hour, Bob Meadows, Physical Scientist with the National Park Service's Natural Sounds and Night Skies Division. And hopefully, if Connie can get her video working, Connie Commons is a Forest Manager with Superior National Forest, who will be joining the conversation. So thank you all for joining us tonight. And I'd like to remind our audience to use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen for sending in questions for our panel. We're going to kick it off with some intro stuff. We have questions left over from Bob's awesome talk. But I'm going to get it started. That's my prerogative as our host tonight. So maybe if we can go around the Zoom room, I'll call on each of you to maybe ask you to orient our audiences to the places where you work. I'll have you describe those lands that you represent, where they're located. Particularly, we have some folks that aren't from Minnesota in the audience, and what makes them so special, particularly when we're talking about dark skies. So Trevor, you're the first person I see next to me. I'm going to ask you to start.
Okay, I'll kick it off. Hi, everyone. So I am the Park Superintendent at Quetico Provincial Park up in Ontario. And just to give you a sense of where we are at, we are kind of the twin of the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness just north of the border. So we're a huge wilderness area known for backcountry canoeing, and we're the oldest wilderness park in the province of Ontario.
All right, Bob DeGross, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. I'm Bob DeGross. I'm the superintendent at Voyageurs National Park. And Voyageurs National Park is located along the Canadian border in northern Minnesota. It's 218,000 acres in size. We're actually just to the west of the Boundary Water Canoe Area Wilderness of the Superior National Forest. So the park extends from the Crane Lake area in the southeast up to International Falls in the northwest. And we protect the woods, water, and wildlife of a portion of the Canadian Shield Boreal Forest in the continental United States.
Excellent. Anne, could you orient us to who you are and where you work?
Sure. So I am the manager of the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness on the Superior National Forest. I'm kind of sandwiched between everyone else, but to the east of Voyageurs National Park, south of Quetico Provincial Park, kind of south and west of Verendrye, and then they're not part of this, but if you go all the way to the east is Grand Portage National Monument. Yeah, and so the Boundary Waters is about 1,098,000 acres, and the whole forest is close to 3 million acres. So I just have the wilderness portion.
Adam, can you introduce yourself?
Hey everybody, my name is Adam Dalton. I'm the Dark Sky Places Program Manager at IDA. I'm based out of sunny Tucson, Arizona. It is unseasonably cold here right now. It is 50 degrees. So we are having the snowbirds arrive. I'm also from the upper Midwest originally. I grew up about 2 hours south of the Twin Cities, but currently I manage the portfolio of 150 certified sites within the Dark Sky Places program. These sites in total measure over 100,000 square kilometers, roughly the land area of South Korea, and encompass 21 countries currently. As was likely going to be mentioned later, Boundary Waters, Quetico, as well as Voyageurs are in various phases of the certification process, and I've been helping to serve as a point of contact with IDA for these sites.
Thank you. Connie, do you want to introduce yourself? We don't have to. We can, oh, here she comes. There you are. Oops, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm on my phone here. I'm Connie Cummins. I'm the forest supervisor on the Superior National Forest.
Excellent. Thank you. And Bob, one more time, if there's people that have come in a little bit after they didn't get to hear your introduction, if you would talk about who you are and where you're working.
Sure. I'm Bob Meadows, and I'm a physical scientist with the Natural Sounds and Night Skies Division of the National Park Service. And I'm in a Washington, D.C. level office, but actually based in Fort Collins, Colorado. And our Natural Resource Stewardship and Science Directorate supports the entire National Park Service through all 421 units.
Great. Thank you. So maybe we could start by talking, and I don't know, Adam, if this is the most appropriate, about sort of what are the criteria for a dark sky place for certification? And then let's expand that and talk, because you all are working together to create a dark sky region. And I'd like to talk about like what does that mean, and what are the implications for that? So maybe Adam, I'll have you kick it off, and then the rest of the folks can jump in.
Right, perfect. Well, I can try and be as brief as possible. I could talk about this all day, but I'll try and keep it short. So there are currently 5 types of certifications offered within the Dark Sky Places program. A way to think about it is they kind of split 3 to 2. So the 3 certifications on this side are our conservation certifications. So those aim to protect places with intrinsically dark skies that are also protected landscapes and have a level of public access and outreach programming. So these are our park, reserve, and sanctuary certifications. There are differences between those, namely reserves encompass both protected as well as non-protected landscapes and are at least 700 square kilometers. They're the only certification with an area minimum currently. And then parks and sanctuaries are the difference is that sanctuaries are generally quote unquote more remote and also have a slightly higher sky quality standard. There are parks within our program that could feasibly have sanctuary quality sky, but owing to high levels of staffing or high levels of built facilities or nearness to a metropolitan area, they're actually parks instead of sanctuaries. So you're getting a little bit close when you're talking about those certifications. But on the other hand, we have our urban certifications. So we're looking at lighting where we live and work. So those are our dark sky communities and our urban night sky places. So communities are any geopolitical entity with no minimum sky quality that takes actions to retrofit public as well as private lighting, as well as adopting ordinances related to outdoor lighting at night, as well as conducting educational programming. Urban night sky places are very similar to our park certification. However, there's no minimum sky quality. So these are places, for example, Central Park in New York, or any parks in downtown Minneapolis, which are too impacted by the inherent sky quality around them to qualify as a park, but they do all of the right things, including lighting retrofits, adopting policies, and undertaking educational outreach. So those are currently our 5 certifications, the bulk of which are parks. So of the 150 certified places, 85 currently are dark sky parks.
Gotcha. And has any effort to the size and scale as this regional effort of partners that we have here, has that been attempted in that way, that sort of a collaborative way to be designated a dark sky region?
It has been to an extent. However, this is going about it in a unique way. So the other areas that are currently going about it. So this is basically going to be a string of certifications. So these Boundary Waters as a sanctuary, Voyageurs as a park, Quetico as a park, what have you. There are other regions, namely Southeast Utah, which have a high density of certified places, but are potentially exploring of tying them together via certifying the entire area as a reserve. So this area is one of the largest, and if it's successful, would be one of the largest successful areas of this type. However, it would be unique insofar as the designations aren't necessarily tied together with an overarching reserve certification, which doesn't minimize the importance or what anyone has accomplished, because functionally with the minimal lighting in the areas that have been certified, as well as the changes that have taken place in Voyageurs and other meaningful environments, there's not much populated land around these to improve the lighting necessarily if a reserve were to be created.
Great. Well, I'd like to hear from our parks and land managers here about sort of where you are in each stage of your process to becoming a dark sky place. And maybe we'll start with Anne, because I think there's big news at the end of August that Boundary Waters Canoe area was officially designated. Could you talk about the process for you and where and it's been in the works for a while, correct? Oops, you're muted.
Yeah, first I just want to say it's nice to see you in person, Adam. We had a lot of conversations. There you are. But yeah, we've been kicking it around since 2009. We had a celebration with Quetico. We both had our centennial, and we took a canoe trip along the border. It was fantastic, but we were all noticing how beautiful the skies were, and talked about people hundreds of years ago seeing the same thing, and just wondering, gosh, would this ever change? Is it possible that we would ever lose these beautiful skies? And we were talking about the difference between, the lights in Duluth or Minneapolis or Thunder Bay compared to, in the middle of Quetico or Boundary Waters or Voyageurs. So, we just start talking about IDA and what it took, and talked to I think it was Bob at the Night Sky Division with the Park Service, and talked to some of his people, and we've just been kicking it around for years. And I think it was 2012, we started monitoring our wilderness character and started looking at different qualities, like one of them, solitude. And one of the indicators for that quality is remoteness. And one of the measures for that indicator of remoteness is the night sky. And so we just really started looking at it, in a deeper way. But that was kind of the start of it. We just started moving towards it, and we were lucky to have Bob and Connie and Trevor, so we could all start talking about it together and share light meter data from along the boundaries. So I think last time I said the stars were in alignment. We were all able to do the same thing, which is really cheesy, but I don't know another way to say it. So yeah, I think it all just kind of came together. We just moved forward that way.
That's great. Bob from Voyageurs, could you talk to us about kind of where you are and the process to get to receive the designation? I'd love to hear. I kind of learned status reports about how it's going and what kind of work you've had to do to get there.
Yeah, well, we're seeking dark sky park certification through the International Dark Sky Association, and I believe it was just about a month or maybe 3 months ago that we submitted our final application package, which includes a dark sky assessment, a dark sky plan that identifies how we are going to minimize the light impacts at our facilities, and then an education and outreach plan as well. And I know that the International Dark Sky Association has our application packet, and I believe they're working towards reviewing it and making a final decision here sometime either late November or in December sometime, possibly before the end of the calendar year 2020. So we're excited about hearing their final decision related to our application packet. And once we get the word, we'll definitely share it with everyone. And it's great, of course, that the Boundary Water Canoe Area Wilderness just got their sanctuary designation, or certification, I should say, not too long ago. And we're working towards our certification. And then, of course, Trevor can probably give you an idea of where Quetico is at with not only Quetico, but La Verendrye and Pigeon River Provincial Park too, right, Trevor?
I can, yes. I guess that's a segue over to me then. So at Quetico, we're at the same point in the process, or a very similar point in the process as Bob at Voyageurs. We have our final application package into Adam and his colleagues at the IDA. And the application package contains all the same elements as Bob's does at Voyageurs National Park. We've been out the last couple summers doing sky quality monitoring, and we've created a lighting management plan for outdoor light fixtures at our park facilities, and have begun to upgrade many of the outdoor light fixtures at Quetico to be dark sky friendly light fixtures. So we have our fingers crossed here at Quetico that we'll be successful and we'll receive designation from the IDA in the coming months. At La Verendrye Provincial Park and Pigeon River Provincial Park, just to the east of us, they are still working on the application package and might be a year or so out. But Quetico is looking like we'll be hopefully assessed, and if everything goes well, have some good news soon.
So, Anne, did you want to jump in? I couldn't tell if you were raising your hand.
I had my fingers crossed for Trevor.
Got it. Excellent. Well, Trevor, I have a question kind of related. Do you in Canada, is there a comparable office like the one that Bob Meadows works for with the National Park Service that can provide assistance and do some of that important data collection?
So in our provincial park system in Ontario, we do not have a comparable office. And in fact, we have received a whole bunch of help from our friends and partners in the National Park Service, and from Anne and her folks in the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness. So it's really been a team effort, and Bob at Voyageurs that one point during this project, was able to provide the services of an intern to help all of the protected areas involved with the project, and it's just been a good team effort. So you know, we've leaned on our partners to the south for a bunch of expertise during this.
That's excellent. Are there other ways in which you all have been able to collaborate and support each other? I think, Trevor, you mentioned that the interns. How have you been working together in this effort?
One of the ways is we have a geotourism geographic area called the Heart of the Continent Partnership. So we actually collaborate quite a bit amongst ourselves, not only on the dark sky protection elements, but any other ways that we can partner with each other. I know, for instance, Anne at the Boundary Water Canoe area and Trevor and a variety of different team members from all the different park areas, I think, have done a lot of work on maintaining portages between the different park areas, or protected areas, I should say. So yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, Anne, wasn't it because of the Heart of the Continent Partnership that sort of got this whole conversation about the dark sky protection going back in 2009?
Yeah, that centennial trip was with the Heart of the Continent as well. So yeah, it was all kind of one big conversation.
Where I'm keeping an eye on questions that have come in from the audiences, and there people have questions. This was actually one of the questions I had too, about how have the communities where you're located embraced your efforts, or how might they be affected by these designations? You want to talk about that relationship? You have to call on someone.
I know I can start it off. I know that the gateway communities of Voyageurs National Park have really embraced this process and are excited about the potential certification in the future, because they recognize it as a way to get the word out more about Voyageurs National Park, which is often a lesser known national park within the United States. And so it's another way of marketing a resource that is spectacular associated with the park. It also has started a really good conversation about amongst community members about any future development that might take place in the communities. And matter of fact, just natural evolution to that conversation about, as soon as something is being considered, I think a natural conversation about, well, are we being mindful of the lights that are being implemented as part of that and everything? I know that one of the things for Voyageurs National Park, the certification definitely focuses on our management of our facilities, but our hope is that it does encourage that conversation in the local communities so that they're mindful of it as things are developed.
Great. Do any of you other folks have sort of how they've been how they've connected with their local community around this effort?
Yeah, I can chime in here. Our park headquarters is located in the town of Atikokan, which is sort of, if you're looking at a map of Quetico, above the north central part of the park. And the town here has been supportive of this initiative and has given us a letter of support, and is really excited to see what kind of a tourism draw this initiative can be. And then also, people here value the natural night skies we have here and recognize it as a resource. So we've had good support from the town of Atikokan. And really, we're on the north side of the border here. We're really, there's not too much around us. So Atikokan is it.
Gotcha. And one of our audience members, James, was asking specifically about Ely. And was wondering what the designation means for communities like Ely.
Like Ely in particular, or just
communities such as? I mean, I think it was just was just curious.
Sure. So For the last few years, the communities of Grand Marais and Tofty were already having dark sky parties, and they had it's a dark sky festival, but it had a special name. I'll think of it later. So they were already kind of marketing that, and a couple of different outfitters, have that as part of what they offer, and they also collaborate with the University of Minnesota Duluth. They have, folks that take van full of kids up the shore, and they look at the sky and all of that. It's very cool. And we have an interpreter out of Tofty, and he has worked that into some of his naturalist programs that he's worked with resorts and cooperators about it. So the communities along the shore were already on this, right? And I think some of them are also trying to move forward as getting designations for their communities as well. As far as the west side, I know there were folks in Ely that were interested in helping us get the boundary waters designated. But we had already gone down the path, but I think they were thinking about the town of Ely as well. I don't know about the far west end, but it just seems like several gateway communities were already onto this, and they're hoping to move forward.
That's great.
So very supportive for the most part.
That's great. Connie, we haven't heard from you in a while. I'd be curious about sort of what role that you've played with Superior National Forest in some of these efforts to preserve and conserve our dark skies up north.
Well, sure. I've been very supportive of it. Anne has certainly done all of the heavy lifting, but certainly we've coordinated with all of our Heart of the Continent partners. Our communities. I think one of the real values of our partnership with the other agencies is that then our communities are all connected. And so it really does become a destination for dark skies by, this continual increase in acres that go into that designation and the protection of that valuable resource. So, I would say that I have done everything I could to support it. And, but I really have to say Anne and Trevor and Bob and others have really done the heavy lifting on this.
Thank you.
However, having that support from her is what allowed me to go forward. So to me, that's incredibly valuable.
That's super. Bob Meadows, I see you in the corner of my Zoom screen, and maybe this question might apply to everyone. Someone asked earlier about if and how, and Adam, you can jump in on here too, how state parks might be involved in efforts to preserve the night sky. It's unclear for me whether the person in our Q&A box was interested, particularly for Minnesota, or if you have examples of where your efforts have connected with state parks.
Absolutely. Yeah. In Utah, I was called, we actually have a technical assistance call system for national park units all across the US to ask for our help in night skies. And in the case of Utah, there's several Utah state parks that are almost intertwined with national park units, such as Dead Horse Point State Park, Goblin Valley State Park, and such. And they were connected with us, and we saw an opportunity to, again, kind of expand our understanding of conditions in the southern part of Utah into areas and kind of build that collaboration. We already had in place this effort called the Colorado Plateau Dark Sky Cooperative that we started back about 2010 or 2011 was the first inklings that actually Dan and Chad kind of came up with this idea of a cooperative, not only of national park sites, but of state park sites, of other federal lands, and of communities, Native American reservations, all these things having the same goal to protect an area. So a little later on, we did have some of the state parks reach out to us they had seen the data from places like Arches and Canyonlands and Capitol Reef, and they wanted a similar kind of assessment. So I went to Dead Horse Point State Park and Goblin Valley State Park, two amazing places also, and collected data, and they began their process of applying for dark sky park certification, which they were given a few years later. And since then, the Utah state parks, a number of them have really taken that same lead. And we've also been to state parks in New Mexico and a few other areas. So again, that collaboration that you're seeing in the heart of the continent is happening in other places, and it's beneficial to all of us.
That's great. Adam, have you been working with state parks in Minnesota or sort of the surrounding area?
So generally speaking, right now, I'm working with state parks in many U.S. states. I think Bob mentioned it correctly. Utah actually not only has the most, I think, state park certified, but it's because they have a specific agency directive to do so. So they actually have gone insofar as to develop a lighting management plan for all of their parks, which meets IDA standards. They've gone on to develop a inventory form, which can be used throughout parks. So they've really embraced it at the agency level. There's a few other states which have done so as well, but to a little bit lesser extent, which include Arizona, Montana, and Texas. In terms of Minnesota, I'm not currently working with any state parks in Minnesota, but that being said, state parks are very eligible to achieve park certification insofar as they have the required sky quality, they conduct outreach, they adopt lighting policy, which meets our standards, and have that ability for the public to access the site meaningfully at night. That being said, I am working with places in other states nearby. I'm working with state parks in Wisconsin, Michigan, Nebraska, and various other Midwest states with their state park systems to certify places as international dark sky parks.
Great. So I have maybe this is an off the wall question, but I'd be interested in for the folks in the heart of the continent group here, like, what about this process or experience towards achieving certification sort of surprised you the most, or proved, we'll say surprised, or proved to be the most challenging part of your process? Maybe you don't want to say that's okay if you want to take a pass because Adam's here in the screen, but I'd be curious on what about it was hard or you weren't quite expecting.
So I'm going to start with, I think the easiest part was probably getting people on board with the idea of preserving natural dark skies in our parks and protected areas. It's a concept that communities and park users and everybody can get behind. The night sky is such an important part of the natural environment that we're protecting in our parks and protected places. So, getting people on board was not hard at all. Honestly, the hardest part of the whole process for us here at Quetico was probably finding dark sky compliant outdoor light fixtures to upgrade our lights with. They're not commonplace, and hopefully in the future they'll be a lot easier to find and everything, but the application process was smooth, and we had Adam guiding us through it, and really no major hurdles on our end.
Who else wants to jump in? You can start with easy and then we can go to hard.
I think I can go. Once the field folks realized they have to take readings every year, I think they were like, wait, what? I thought we were done. So for some of the folks on the districts, I think that was not the best news they'd ever heard. But gosh, maybe getting the right data point locations within the wilderness and trying to get some of those logistics on top of all the other work that they have to do. And with a summer like this summer, where we didn't have, as much staff or the same kind of ease with logistics, it was a little bit more complicated. But yeah, I would say maybe that. Adam's, he's there for you, that's for sure, and answering all kinds of questions. And I think it was just a matter of time. It just takes time.
Bob DeGross?
Yeah, I know for us at Voyageurs, and this is the second National Park Service area that I've been involved with that I've worked to move through the certification. I was also involved with Big Cypress National Preserve in South Florida being certified as a dark sky park. And if I'm not mistaken, that was the first National Park Service area east of the Mississippi River that was identified as a dark sky park. It's a longer process than people expect it is. It's not just a 2-page application that you have to fill out and you send to the IDA. The actual final document, I know for us, I forget right off the top of my head, Adam, but I think it's about 150 to about 150 page document. And most of it, of course, is the lighting management plan. And also, again, for a National Park Service site, we tend to have more facilities. I was watching part of Bob Meadows' presentation prior to this panel opportunity, and many of you who did see that probably saw the picture of Yosemite Valley. National parks tend to develop a variety of different facilities as amenities for the visitors coming to those areas, where places like Boundary Water Canoe Area Wilderness, if I'm not mistaken, Ann, is pretty free of a lot of facilities, right? So not only was the development of the application a long process, but a worthwhile process, it's also the modification and retrofitting of the facilities that we have, which of course is an undertaking, but a worthwhile undertaking. I know that I've heard many positive comments from the people who live near our boat launch parking areas that are very happy that we've retrofitted the lights to make sure that they are downcast properly and that they're on timers and things like that. And also just to help with the lift of having to do the expense of the retrofit of the lights that we've done so far, we do have some more that we have to do in the future. We had partners like the Voyageurs Conservancy and National Park Foundation that were able to help us fund the retrofit of those facilities and things. I would say the funnest part for me is going out and doing the light meter readings, because it's great to be out in a crisp fall night and wake up at 2 o'clock with your sky quality meter to check to see what the light impacts are and things like that. But I don't have to do it every year, and like some of your forest rangers do and things. So yeah.
Well, so the fact that you mentioned making measurements multiple places, multiple times leads me. I was thinking about this when Bob Meadows was giving his talk. How, if you're talking about a large region and a large area, how do you decide where is the point where you are measuring the quality of the sky, whether you're using the very fancy equipment that there's only 10 in the world of, I think that Bob Meadows was talking about, or other sky quality meters? Like, who decides? How do you decide?
I decide a lot of the time. Generally speaking, there are protocols around sky quality measuring for dark sky place applicants. Within the 2018 guidelines, there is requirements for robust sky quality data measurements before certification, and as Ann mentioned, after certification, to see how sky quality changes over time. Additionally, the 2018 guidelines brought with them the additional requirement to add astrophotography, because what we required before were measurements at the zenith, which Bob mentioned, which do give you an image, directly overhead, but they, might miss the presence of large light domes on the horizon, which is why we now require that photography. I mean, if we could, I would love to be able to require the NPS's cameras, but being there's only 10 in the world, we don't we realize it's not feasible for most people to utilize, especially international applicants who might need to have a system shipped internationally. But generally speaking, when you're looking at points to measure, there's really 3 things you're looking for. The first is basically establishing the range of sites. So basically the darkest site to the most site impacted by light pollution. So understanding really what the total variability within the site sky quality is. The second would also be major sites. So any sites that are prominent sky viewing areas or major areas of visitation, understanding what sky quality most people will experience at the site to be certified. And then the third basically is just filling out any geographical holes that might occur from the locations chosen for the first 2 criteria. And the number of sites varies. It varies a lot with the size of the place being certified. I've certified some sites that are on the scope of a few acres. You don't need a dozen sites on a few acres because you're going to be standing, a few hundred feet apart, which there's not going to be meaningful differences in sky quality. However, in an area as large as the Boundary Waters, that inherently necessitates the need for more measurement locations.
One of our audience members, Jessica, has a question. Have any of the tribes in northern Minnesota or in Ontario been involved in any of the efforts to preserve our dark skies?
This kind of, I would say we have certainly talked to the bands over on our side, and yeah, they are supportive for the same reasons we all are. And so, yeah, we've gotten good support. I don't know how much, they've actually worked towards helping with the meter readings or any of that. Anne would know that better than I, but certainly we have talked to them about it and they are supportive.
Anything else? Others want to add on that front?
Yeah, and north of the border, our partner Lac La Croix First Nation, who help us to operate a portion of Quetico and work with us on natural resource management planning and so on. The Lac La Croix First Nation is supportive of the initiative, and we're hoping that as things sort of gradually return to normal, we can work together to develop some culturally relevant Indigenous educational material about the night sky above Quetico.
And also in a few years, Grand Portage National Monument out of Grand Portage, Minnesota, at the very eastern end of the arrowhead of northeastern Minnesota, is going to be putting together their dark sky park certification application. And of course, Grand Portage National Monument is right on the lands of the Grand Portage Band. So they're very involved, or will be very involved more as that site moves towards its certification.
I think, Trevor, you mentioned that the most challenging thing was getting a hold of the lighting, or for that, which is relevant to a question that another attendee mentioned, and was wondering how or is the Dark Skies Initiative changing the lighting industry in any way? And maybe this could be an Adam question, but I'd be curious if there's been any feedback that as you've struggled to put retrofit lights on your visitor centers, how have the lighting industries responded?
I guess, I can speak from IDA's perspective, and I welcome the park's perspective as they're the ones who are doing most of the retrofitting. But IDA, notably, we have multiple different branches to our organization. So my purview is the Dark Sky Places program, but we also have realms for public policy, trying to get policies enacted related to dark skies domestically and internationally. We have our sector related to public education, but then we also have a fixture seal of approval program. So through IDA's fixture seal of approval program, if lighting fixtures meet essentially IDA's lighting principles, which are minimizing blue light, utilizing full shielding, using an appropriate amount of lighting for the task at hand, they can be certified via this program. Our technical director, Pete Strasser, works with lighting manufacturers domestically and internationally to certify fixtures. That program has grown fairly dramatically in the number of fixtures certified over the past 5 years. It's also interesting talking to Pete, who's a lifelong lighting designer. He said that, not too long ago, when the advent of LED came around, you couldn't find anything below 4,000 Kelvin. Everything was bright white, bright blue. But now, as places have come to realize the negative impacts of such lighting, 3,000 Kelvin, 2,700, 2,200, narrowband amber, there's been a great increase in technology and subsequently also a larger number of players in that market. So the price of fixtures has dropped. An issue Trevor unlikely has faced, as well as other applicants, is oftentimes they can be in very remote areas. So it's hard to go to a local hardware store in a small town and find maybe appropriate lighting. And it may have to be either ordered online or purchased in a larger city. So that still is an issue that we see a lot of places facing domestically and internationally, but luckily the market for these products is growing.
That's great. That's great. I'm trying to keep an eye on time. And so maybe we'll close. This is a question if you were watching earlier, I asked Bob Meadows about his most spectacular dark sky moment. Last night, I got to ask Connie Walker for hers. So maybe we'll go around the Zoom room and I want to hear about, tell me what you saw. Where were you? What took your breath away when observing our dark night sky? Who wants to go first? I don't have to pick on people, but I will.
For me, I think one of the neatest opportunities is being up here in northern Minnesota along the Canadian border and being out on the frozen lake in the middle of January or February during a new moon when there isn't any moon glow at all, and the spectacular sky above me, and then being able to hear wolves howling off in the distance. And then I also like going out during a full moon, just seeing the contrast of what the sky, the night sky looks like with a new moon during the crisp winter nights as compared to when you have a new moon or a full moon, I should say. So yeah, that's just a neat opportunity to drive out on the lake, well away from any of the lights of the communities near on the edge of the park, and just get away from all of that.
Yeah, I'm going to use a winter example too, Bob. I love skiing after dark in Quetico, and whether it's a new moon or a full moon or anywhere in between, I love just shutting off the headlamp and skiing by light of the stars or moon, whichever it is. It's just with the light of the sky reflecting off the snow, it's just an amazing experience. And there's a lot of clear skies up here in the middle of the winter time when everything's really, really cold. There's really excellent night sky viewing opportunities.
Anne, are you still thinking? It doesn't have to be within Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness. I'm just saying that where did it?
I've had so many. I don't even know how to pick one. That's like impossible. But my most recent one, I was on the Namakin in Bob's Park. Sorry, Connie, but I was in Bob's Park, and it was just a few weeks ago, and just seeing the Milky Way from horizon to horizon always gets me to just see no end to it. And I don't know why it was so amazing that night, but it was. It just kind of blew me away. But I don't know. There's so many.
That's a pretty good one. Connie, what about you? Have you had a dark sky moment?
I'm like Anne, there's so many. Nothing beats northern Minnesota in the winter, being out in the dark. And, if you if you do spend much time outdoors, it's usually in the dark in winter, right? Because that's the only time you have. And so that's been some really pretty precious moments to me. I'd also say I worked on the Fremont Wainema in Oregon, and there were some pretty open spaces out there. And I worked in a remote area, and so the light was pretty minimal, and the stars were pretty magnificent. I think anywhere you go. My hope is that, as we talk about this more and we start to celebrate these designations that we're getting, and hopefully we will at some point as a collective group here celebrate with our communities, the more people learn about it and understand how light affects what they're seeing, that we'll start to see that demand in places like Duluth and small communities. Sometimes I look out my bedroom window and wish that I could see stars and not the neighbor's porch light. So that's my hope.
Yeah, that's good. Adam, I don't want you to feel left out. Do you have a dark sky moment that you want to wow us with?
Sure. So I think one of the coolest perks of this position is working internationally and getting to interact with incredible people worldwide. One of those opportunities last year was I was able to go to the South Pacific, to the world's smallest micronation, depending on your definition of micronation, the island, quote unquote, micronation of Niue, which is to the north, to the immediate north. I believe it's across the international date line, so that would make it really whatever. It would be northeast, except for the international date line. But it is. I was on an uplifted coral reef on the dark side of the island. The island only has about 2,000 residents. You can see a single source of light, and just seeing the Milky Way stretch over the coral reef in the ocean, as well as the deep space object, was ludicrous. But I think in my daily life, I work 8 to 5. And I run basically every day. I'm a competitive marathon runner, but that necessitates me running at night. So I think here in the Sonoran Desert, which is very different than Minnesota, one of my favorites is, I'm just driving. I live downtown Tucson, but the thing about Tucson is that it's a very low density city and you can very easily be out of it fairly quickly. And I can drive 20 minutes, just be out in the desert and see the stars shining over the saguaros, hear the coyotes, and just like smell the desert at night, which is a powerful experience.
Thank you everyone for sharing. Bob, did you want to revise your dark sky moment?
Kind of like Ann said, there's just so many. I watched the Hale-Bopp comet again from Death Valley and other places in the middle of the winter. And then as the other Bob said, the first time I went to Voyageurs, and that first night we collected at the Ash River area at that overlook, we got out, set up all of our cameras, and it was a beautiful September night, clear, and right on cue, the wolves started howling. And it was just spectacular. Those kind of things you don't get everywhere else. And then I had the fortune, I was just early September this year, I got to go out for a week in Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness, and kind of in the heart of it, in the northeast corner, and had a couple of clear nights on Knife Lake that were just as good as I've seen anywhere. Just spectacular. Your absence of sound, besides wildlife and the loons, which were kind of accentuating the night sky. It was those kind of experiences. You don't want to say one's better than the other, but there's so many places that you can have those.
Yeah. Thank you all. I think that's a wonderful note to leave it. I think we are very lucky here and in Minnesota and in with our surrounding neighbors to have such resources where we can have those experiences. And we will be crossing our fingers and toes for those of you that have your applications in, and congratulations again to the Boundary Waters Canoe area. So thank you, Ann and Bob and Trevor and Connie and Adam. We really appreciate you being here tonight and joining us for our statewide star party. So thank you. Everyone at home, give a round of applause. Yay!
Hi, thanks.
Thank you.